Hello, Zion family and friends. What a blessing it is to come to you another Wednesday. I pray that you and your family are doing well and that you all are safe and you're taking precautions and doing everything that you need to do during this very difficult season. We're continuing on with this series that is entitled Please See Beyond My Mask. And we've adopted this from the book of D.F. Moore, in which she cites the poems of Charles C. Finn and grabs some powerful principles out of that. And I want to continue on with that today. Here's another section of the poem by Mr. Finn. I panic at the thought of my weakness exposed. That's why I frantically create a mask to hide behind, a nonchalant, sophisticated facade to help me to pretend, to shield me from the glance that knows. But such a glance is precisely my salvation, my only hope, and I know it. That is, if it's followed by acceptance, if it's followed by love. It's the only thing that can liberate me from myself, from my own self-built prison walls, from the barriers I so painstakingly erect. It's the only thing that will assure me of what I can't assure myself, that I'm really worth something. I have to underline that myself, that I am really worth something. I'm now thinking of President Theodore Roosevelt, who had an idea, and it was said that he was a man who made just rash, impulsive decisions. And on this occasion, he had an idea to invite Booker T. Washington to the White House. It was a hasteful decision. It was his friend. We said, I need to have him over. So he would have his staff to write a note to Mr. Washington. And in haste, he wanted it done right away. But then he hesitated. What was the hesitation for? You need to know. It was 1901, and segregation was a law. Black people could come to the White House. They could even eat at the White House, but they couldn't eat dinner at the White House. They could serve at the White House, meet at the White House, but there were certain things that they could not do. And again, dinner was one of those things. What? Yeah. Get it. They built the White House, worked in the White House, outside of the White House, cared for the officials in the White House. But there were certain things that they could not do. And one of those things was having dinner. And yet, the president, Theodore Roosevelt, decided that he wanted to have Booker T. Washington to the White House for dinner. He hesitated in shame, but he went ahead. Can you imagine Booker T. Washington's response, his family response, when they received this letter that he's been invited to the White House. This would be a landmark moment for African Americans, for Negroes is what they were called at that time. So he hastened to pack his bag, but for him there was hesitation. I'm sure of it. Why hesitation? Well, he's thought of the backlash of it. Again, segregation was the law at that time. What would happen to his family once the world sees that he is eating dinner with the President of the United States? Could be dangerous. Bombings were common at that time. Cross burnings, common at that time. Lynchings, common at that time. Not to mention all of the nasty press that could follow such a meeting. Well, he went. They met. They ate together. And in my mind, I can see the joy of all of those Negroes, the butlers, all of those who were a part of the staff, the black folks, who were serving dinner that day, the pride that must have been in their heart as they saw finally a black man sitting at the table with the president. Well, probably not even the next day, maybe that evening, the press got a hold of it and they began to just eat the president alive for his decision. It didn't go good. He was criticized immediately. His ratings tanked. There were threats against him. There was threats against Washington. And the White House went into immediate spin mode to say the meeting they had was not a dinner, it was actually a lunch. Why would they say that? Well, you have to understand the background of it, which is really crazy and absurd. The thought during that time was that if a white man had dinner with a Negro in his home, in his house, it was basically inviting that Negro to woo his daughter. To woo his daughter into courtship and ultimately into marriage, and they could potentially have this interracial union that would mess up the white race. Crazy, crazy. But that was the thought. Your question is, what was the stance of the president? After all, he invited Booker T. Washington as a friend. Would he stand up for his friend? No. He was more concerned about his ratings than being a real and true friend. My other question was, when Booker T. Washington returned to his home, how did he feel after reading the press and seeing the White House response and seeing his friend's response that he didn't stand up to all of the controversy. How did he feel as a man when he looked at himself? What did he do when he went into the community? I believe that he had to put on this mask of pretension that so many of my forefathers had to wear, pretending that everything was okay in the midst of rejection and humiliation. I get why Charles C. Finn wrote, I wear the mask, and there's a possibility with the glances that come my way. Will it be followed by acceptance? Is it followed by love? And in the end, will I feel like a worthless individual? And in that time, when he looks in the mirror, he feels devalued, but he actually has to put on this mask, this persona that says everything is okay. And thinking of this, it also brings my attention to John, the 4th chapter. And there we see Jesus making his way back to Galilee after ministering. And I'm in John, the 4th chapter. In order to get there, John writes that he had to pass through Samaria. And I'm reading from the Message Bible. It says, to get there, he had to pass through Samaria. He came into Sychar, a Samaritan village that bordered the field Jacob had given his sons. Jacob's well was still there. Jesus, worn out by the trip, sat down at the well. It was noonday. And a woman, a Samaritan woman, I would say a beautiful woman, came to draw water. And Jesus said, would you give me a drink of water? His disciples had gone to the village to buy food for lunch. And I would say that Jesus made haste to go to Samaria, not because he's impulsive, but because this is a part of God's divine agenda for his life. God is up to something. Did Jesus hesitate in going there? In his humanness, I would say he had to, because he was quite aware of the cultural divide that was going on between the Jews and the Samaritans. The Samaritans were the descendants of those of the northern tribe of Israel. Once the Assyrians captured them, they began to intermingle and intermarry with that particular culture, and what was produced out of there is known as the Samaritans. Amongst the Jewish population, they were considered to be half-breeds and hated by the Jews. I mean, considered to be dogs by the Jews. There was no communing with the groups. And here, Jesus was at this well in Sychar, and Jews and Samaritans were never to drink from or draw from the same bucket out of the same well. Okay. So a Samaritan woman came to draw water. Jesus said, would you give me a drink? And the Samaritan woman, taken aback, asked, how is it that you, being a Jew, are asking me, a Samaritan woman for a drink? You know the racial divide. You know what's up here. What are you doing? And Jesus answered, if you knew the generosity of God, if you knew who I am, you would be asking me for a drink, and I would give you fresh living water. The woman said, sir, you don't even have a bucket to draw with, and this well is deep. So how are you going to give me this living water? Are you better than our ancestor Jacob, who dug this well and drank from it, he and his son and livestock, and passed it down to us? And Jesus said, everyone who drinks this water will get thirsty again and again. Anyone who drinks the water I will give will never thirst, not ever. See, the water I'll give will be an artesian spring within, gushing fountains of endless life. And the woman said, okay, sir, give me this water so that I don't want to be thirsty. Sir, give me this water so I won't ever get thirsty, won't ever have to come back to this well again. And Jesus looked at her and he said, okay, go call your husband and then come back. And this is where it gets deep. This is where the woman is unmasked. She goes to the well, you see, with haste. She wants to get there and get back before the evening. But she wants to get there and avoid a crowd because she has a certain kind of reputation in the community. And it's caused her to wear 1,000 masks. Day after day, their gazes, and she wonders, will there ever be acceptance? Will there ever be any love? And the woman releases her mask and says, I have no husband. That's nicely put. I have no husband. Jesus says, you've had 5 husbands, and the man you're living with now ain't your husband. You spoke the truth there. You spoke the truth. She takes her mask down and she speaks truth. And she responds by going into surface, actually. She says, oh, so you're a prophet. Well, tell me this. Our ancestors worship God at this mountain, but you Jews insist that Jerusalem is the only place for worship, right? With her mask, she's used to surface. Jesus still goes in deep. Believe me, woman, the time is coming when you Samaritans will worship the Father neither here at this mountain nor there in Jerusalem. You worship guessing in the dark. We Jews worship in the clear light of day. God's way of salvation is made available through the Jews. But the time is coming. It has in fact come when what you're called will not matter, and where you go to worship will not matter. It's who you are and the way you live that count before God. Wow. Jesus said, it's who you are and the way you live that count before God. The hour is coming where those who worship God must worship him in spirit and in truth. And at that moment where Jesus says, it's who you are and how you live that caused her to then not only take away that mask, but 1,000 masks. And she was relieved because she had met somebody whose glance went far beyond the surface. There was not just acceptance there, you see, but there was love there. The disciples show up and they see the two of them talking. And what I love about Jesus is that he didn't go into spin mode of the moment. They could see that he was ministering to the woman and that he ministered in love. I'll tell you this and then I'll end. What I love about Jesus is that he gets to the real in us, the real deal of who we are. And when he does that, he doesn't tell us how bad we are, but what we can do to become. And in his presence, we discover that we are really worth something. There is an old song that the old saints used to sing, and oh my God, they would go in and singing it. It's called Jesus is Real to Me. And when I think about the story of Booker T. Washington and all that he went through as a man, and knowing that it was hard to find people that were true to their word, true in character, and true to their nature. I understand why when they would sing songs like this around that referred to Jesus, how it would just get into their spirit. Because Jesus is real. You can count on that. There's nothing false about him. And as I said before, Jesus gets beyond all of the facade, all of the layers of stuff that cultural causes us to put up. He gets beyond that and he taps into the real in us. It's an old song, but powerful. My parents used to sing it, grandparents used to sing it, and for those of you that know it, you'll probably want to join in. I just want to do a couple rounds of the chorus. Real, Jesus is real to me. Oh, yes, he gives me the victory. So many people doubt him. I can't live without him. That is why I love him so. He's so real to me. Real, real. Jesus is real to me. Oh, yes. He gives me the victory. So many people doubt him. I can't live without without him. That is why I love him so. He's so real to me.